how insane life became in regard to killing somebody or the mishaps of real-life murder encounter. Yet in the present video we are discussing true serial killer encounter horror stories and scary stories. This experience occurred back in 2006, at the point when I was 20 years of age. I'm a female and I didn't get my driver's permit until January of that year, so presently having the option to drive myself opened a great deal of entryways for me. Furthermore, as a result of that, I took a great deal of solo travels to my companion's home that was 2 or 3 states over. I recall one time explicitly I was driving alone on a highway on arbitrary day in July while heading to visit my companion for a long end of the week. Her folks were away, and we had the house to ourselves and were anticipating drinking, hot tubing, and to generally have a happy time. It was a Friday, and I'd left much I needed to, like it. It was dull now, and being another driver, what's more, driving in obscurity made me pretty uncomfortable. Following a couple of hours, I halted at a gas station to top off and get a few tidbits for the last piece of my drive. I was going into the store when a man moved toward me, and he was about 5 feet tall and had on a plain dark tee and pants with dim earthy colored hair. He pickup truck and just minutes prior left a couple of spaces from my vehicle. The person had a very serious gaze that promptly creeped me out. As he made up for lost time to me, he took a stab at beginning a discussion by inquiring whether I was from the region where I was going and if I knew about anything enjoyable to do. I immediately answered with no shaking him off as simply one more unpleasant buddy. However, shockingly, he then welcomed me to go play scaled-down golf or catch a film with him without taking a gander at him. I declined his greeting and went on towards the store. Truly, I was stunned. He asked me to accomplish something with him. The entire energy was off. It was pretty awkward and simply irregular. As I was entering the store, I could then hear him holler a harsh roughage. It was really forceful and inappropriate that it even frightened a family touring out of the store. However, I just overlooked it and proceeded inside. Soon after, I could tell the person followed me. He was obviously gazing at me, so I went to utilize the washroom and remained in the slow down for somewhere around 5 minutes, messaging my companion about the person. Fortunately, when I came out, I proved unable to see him in the store any longer. I then, at that point, went out to place gas in my vehicle and was again feeling better, as this dark pickup was no place to be seen. However, to my outright loathsomeness, as I was pulling out of the service station stopping part, I could hear somebody relentlessly blaring their horn. I examined my rearview mirror and I could plainly see a similar dark pickup behind me. The person was currently yelling and flagging me to head over aside. I obviously went ballistic, stepped on it, furthermore, maneuvered onto the entrance back onto the expressway. In any case, the person was following me. I called my companion, very alarmed. I drove super quick, and thinking back, I'm fortunate I didn't get into a mishap. The person didn't follow me for that long. Furthermore, I think solely after a couple of ways out he was gone. However, even still, the last hours of my drive were incredibly tense. I didn't stop for the remainder of the outing. Furthermore, at no point saw the person's vehicle in the future. I actually look at my mirrors continually the remainder of the way. In the long run, I got to my companion's home securely later than we really had a pleasant end of the week. Regardless of the experience, the entire thing was most certainly dreadful. In any case, throughout the long term, I didn't think as well much about it. That was until around 6 years after the fact. Yet again, when the memory would come new to me, I was conversing with one more companion of mine who was enormous into chronic executioner narratives. What's more, things like that. I recall at one point I had referenced my experience, tongue-in-cheek, proposing that the man I had met was a chronic executioner. Also, made sense of for her my experience. She was entranced. What's more, hence needed to research dynamic chronic executioners in the space of where I experienced everything. Yet, the principal fellow that surfaced made my heart drop. It was a man named Jake. I in a split second perceived the person. There was no doubt, as far as I can say, that was a similar person I had experienced at the corner store that evening. Both the time and the region were a match. The man had 3 convictions. It was 2 counts of homicide and 1 count of attack. This revelation has tormented me from that point onward. Also, made me be substantially more wary out in the open around evening time. My heart goes out to the casualties of this man and their families. I've been thankful consistently since that I didn't become one of them. Hi guys, before you keep watching the video, if you want to send a personal true horror story of yours, please send it to me on my email, and I will contact you for sure. Also, don't forget to keep watching your video. At the factor after I become in my mid-20s, and new out of school, I lived in a few definitely questionable but modest excessive rises with inside the US. Currently, something to observe is that the dividers in my loft close out essentially no sound, and in view of this, I might nearly constantly listen my neighbor to one facet of me impacting his tune, but with inside the occasion that I'm being truthful, it did not aggravate me but much. I figured it might. I might simply play my very own tune to now no longer listen it as boisterous. One nighttime I ought to see he had been consuming a ton simply from the manner. I ought to listen him coincidentally locating his room. I, moreover, calculated his higher half of ought to have been there, as I ought to listen him for all intents and purposes, shouting at her, which tragically wasn't all that remarkable. Generally, whilst matters get that noisy, I attempt to transport far from the lot. Furthermore, seeing because it wasn't a lot that overdue, I might to exit for the night time with some partners. We went to multiple golf equipment, and in Popular had an amusing time short ahead to round 1 a.m. or so. And my partners had been losing me ease off in my loft, but as we had been crashing into the parking region, someplace a ways off, we ought to see my neighbor outdoor squat down with inside the center of sure vehicles. What is extra? The condo complex, all right. Form of odd. But I figured it become no huge deal both matter, because the character become really normally unpleasant in any case. My partners had been manifestly extra weirded out than I become. I simply did not admire it, and simply had them drop me off near the entrance, as it might be extra truthful for them to leave the parking storage that matter. But as I become on foot closer to my loft building, I swear my coronary heart dropped. I noticed my neighbor become currently standing definitely nevertheless in one of the shrubs. Had become among of the condo structures. As I drew nearer, it becomes clean he thought I did not see him to interrupt the pressure. I waved at him and murmured a hello, as I wasn't really going to assume that I could not see him with inside the wake of doing as such. He is given out of the bramble and got here into the faint avenue lamp now, no longer giving the slightest look, and stared at me rather. At no factor ever have I investigated eyes so broadened and absolutely expanded. The complete enjoy become shocking, say the least, but I tried to dismiss it also. Went on into the shape proper as I was given to my loft entryway. I was given inside what is extra. Headed to sleep, I become depleted and really wished to dismiss the lot and nod off, albeit all. In the course of that point, I might be able coronary heart kilos and stirring, and that appeared like furnishings moving. The subsequent morning, I awoke to the sound of police outdoor beating on my neighbor's entryway. I become fairly feeling higher to listen them, but that right now long past to dread of why they had been there. In any case, I ought to listen them get rid of him in binds. Shortly after the police began thumping on my entryway, they requested me whilst the closing time I had conversed with her visible him become. Furthermore, decisively, I instructed the legit all that had passed off with inside the different evening, the shouting, the clamors to enjoy in the parking region. And surprisingly, the wrestling sounds during the evening. In any case, the lot I become stated subsequent will till the cease of time torment me. The truth that my neighbor had fiercely makes me informed killed his sweetheart. That evening they stated he hauled her frame outdoor, what is extra, right into a nearby ditch at the back of the condo complexes. What is extra? This is the factor, at which I understood that the different nighttime I become checking a person out who had currently taken some other person's life. I genuinely felt horrendous for the lady proper up till the prevailing time. What upsets me extra than something else is the ticket near I become to death. Straightforwardly also, how he would have trapped me out of insanity due to the fact he become really preserving up in the dimness after I strolled up. I moved into a change loft in a higher region of Metropolis quickly after the occasion. Female and 23 years of age. I as of late escaped a pretty oppressive relationship. Furthermore, truly, I wasn't in the best spot intellectually as a result of it, assuming I'm in effect genuine. It was hard for me to now need to return home every night to an unfilled condo with just myself. At any rate, this night my companions had chosen to take more time to a hockey game to get me out of the house. Also possibly get my brain off of the separation. It was a Friday night. Furthermore, we had been consuming a nice measure of liquor during the movement of the game in the field we were going. There was this bar, where you could purchase as quite a large number of drinks as you needed, sensibly speaking obviously, and following the game we chose to set out there toward a couple of something else. Before we left, it was a bustling evening, so particularly considering the game was coming to a close, the line was appropriately lengthy during the length of the time. I was persistently pausing. I had begun to talk with a couple folks right close to me. In a matter of seconds into the discussion, one of them made some noise and requested my telephone number. Thinking back, I most certainly ought to have said no. However, in the state I was in, I gave it to them after we had at last gotten our beverages, my companions, and I chose to consider it a night. We headed out in different directions, yet rather than calling an Uber and returning to my loft, I ironically chose to message the man I had recently traded contact data with. He answered practically immediately, saying he'd head over in an Uber and take me back to his place. Assuming I needed again, I settled on a dumb choice and concurred at last. He appeared, and we were off back to his place. However, the drive was a decent 45 minutes at the point when we showed up. I immediately acknowledged we were basically in the center of no place. We weren't in a place near the city any longer, and as I checked out, I understood not a single other property was to be found. Genuinely, without setting out, without any problem, would have confused his home with a deserted building. It was that awful. Yet notwithstanding being, however inebriated as I seemed to be, I rapidly ignored all my doubt. Furthermore, followed the man to the front entryway. As we entered, I immediately acknowledged how clean the spot glimpsed from within, like think medical clinic level clean, even down to the smell. Without offering, he immediately poured us a glass of apparently costly red wine. I barely cared about it at that point, and from what I recall that he poured it right before me. Furthermore, even drank some himself. However, that was the last memory I had of that evening. The following thing I realized: I was in a room with the sun presently obviously radiating through the window. The clamor of a shower running rapidly filled my ears. I was sluggish and stunned when I woke up, yet I gradually started sorting out where I was, who I was with, and simply the general circumstance I was in. As it returned to me, I understood. I expected to leave right away. I madly started to look for my phone, garments, and wallet, yet it was no utilization. I was unable to track down them. I surged out of the room in the expectations to simply leave inconspicuous, preceding this man escaping the shower. However, as I was leaving, my heart sank into my stomach. All the furnishings and floors were totally covered with plastic shower shades, which I unmistakably recollect not being there. Before me, shutting down the evening previously, I immediately saw all my own effects were put flawlessly on the kitchen counter close by a blade that plainly wasn't a kitchen blade, yet rather a hunting blade or something like that. My impulses kicked in, and I have immediately gotten my things and ran out the entryway. I ran for a long time in an irregular bearing, terrified, then brimming with adrenaline. A decent 15 minutes of all-out running not too far off, and I at long last halted to call a companion to get me and take me back to my loft. At the point when I got back, I immediately hindered the fellow's number, and right up till the present time have never heard anything from him again. Now thinking back, I understood I ought to have reached the specialist right away. Yet for reasons unknown, I never got it done. Clear, I was not in the right condition of mind by then in my life also. This consumes me day to day, as I accept now it's past the point of no return for me to report the man, seeing as I don't have the smallest memory of where his house was found, or on the other hand, even his name. The detail that torment me the most is that the main thing missing of my individual assets was my ID. What's more, this makes me question